See, these are all the letters I got from you.
Miss Vera Booth.
What was the date on this one?
July 17, 67.
I'm going to read it. Should I?
Okay.
This is my dearest Vera. Thank you for getting the plane ticket. Clarence and I first met in Oshawa, Ontario. At that school, the young men would drive the Easter Seal buses for the disabled children to take them to their school, and us nursing students used to go along as attendants. And I got on his bus quite a bit, and we got quite acquainted. So from our 3 years of nurses training, we knew each other, and we always knew if each other was around, but we didn't actually start dating till about 3 months before my actual graduation in my 3rd year nursing.
She invited me to the nurses' resident banquet, and she asked if I would be her date that night. She was wearing a nice sort of royal blue dress. Blue always looked good on her, matched her eyes.
Neither one of us liked to be around a whole lot of people. So we did a lot of things of going to, not into restaurants, but things like A&W, and we liked driving around the countryside, seeing different places.
We hiked the different mountains in Massachusetts. Rockport was a great place we'd go. A very quaint little coastal village. She was from the prairies, I was from overseas. We really got to learn to love the ocean. I was leaving for University in Massachusetts, and this was after our first dating summer. At that time, the men's aftershave was Jade East, and I just put it on a handkerchief, and I had it in my back pocket. And
he handed me this hanky out of the window. He gave me his hanky that he'd put some of his cologne on for me to keep. And that kept him close to me.
One of my classmates had an uncle in Boston, Massachusetts, who was a jeweler. And I was debating, do I marry, do I not, do I propose, how can I afford it, this type of thing. I had a pilot's license at that time. And it was one evening.
We went out. I thought we were going out to watch airplanes again, and that's where he proposed to me.
We didn't use a ring, we used a diamond watch. And then I kept them in the car for a while before we proposed. And so I think it got Vera off guard because she got pretty excited. So then I phoned Vera's dad the next day to ask if it's okay that I could marry his daughter. And he said, yeah, about time. Yeah, it was awesome. Her dad walking her down. My cousin was my best man, and he was still single. I almost dug him in the ribs and said, look what I'm getting.
I made my own wedding dress. When we went to put my wedding dress on and everything, I didn't realize that it still wouldn't stay shut. I didn't do all that checking before.
My sister pulled out needle and thread from her purse and sewed her in, and so I knew I had to somehow cut these threads. And so we walked in the house, the piano was there, and on top of the piano was a jackknife. So I grabbed this thing and followed her up the stairs with this big jackknife.
But he had to cut me out of my dress.
I know I was nervous the day before, but I was excited. Yeah, this was a girl of my choice. And, I married into an awesome family. And I'd lost my dad at the age of 21, and Vera's dad became my dad. There was so much similarity in outlook on life and how you deal with situations between Vera's dad and my dad that I felt very comfortable with him. When we were driving through Saskatchewan to come out for our wedding, and driving back to Massachusetts, we said, going through Saskatchewan, I'll never live here. Either leave the country or register for draft. And it's the time when I had classmates going into Vietnam, and a few months later I might attend their funeral. And I said, no way. So we left. And we just packed up everything in a U-Haul and came to Vera's place. Folks, we stayed there. I helped on the farm. Then Vera got a job in Swift Current, Saskatchewan. We looked on the map to see where that was and drove down there. It was like moving to Siberia. It had a heavy snowfall and it just looked like a frozen sea, the open prairies. I got a job with the federal government and we decided to build a house. And it was a Nelson package, which everything came on the truck. And I think the total cost of the house package was about $8,500. But now it was a big jigsaw puzzle to put the thing together. And Vera's dad came down and he'd done some building and we put the thing together.
We bought an acreage outside of Swift Current, and that was our second home. In 1996, Clarence retired. My dad told us about this place here, and we came to look at it, and this is when we bought this home. The layout was a bit different. We moved the granaries and we changed things around in the yard somewhat. As I was standing and looking out the kitchen window, I thought I'd like something nice out in that corner, that just in the corner inviting something nice. So I said to Clarence, I'd really like to have a fish pond out there. I'd like to have kind of a flower garden and a fish pond. And sort of, yeah, it'll happen, you know. And so we talk about it. And so one day, I don't know where he went. Anyways, I just took a shovel and started digging. And I dug and dug, and I thought, well, I'm going to make it kind of kid. As I went, I created type of thing.
I saw him for the first time at 5 days. And I think it was about 10 days, for 2 weeks, before we could take him home from the hospital. And I remember he handed him to me and he says, "Here you are, Clarence, your life has changed forever." And he was an individual that couldn't wait, wanted to do things now, you know, it had to be now.
Trevor was a very outgoing child. He was expressive, and what he wanted, he wanted it, and he didn't quit whining and grizzling until you either put a very definite no, you're not getting that, or he convinced me he should have it. Or he was a very intense child, expressive. We'd always tell him this story about a mummy had her baby, but she didn't have a daddy for her baby, so she gave her baby to a mummy and daddy that didn't have any baby, and so forth. And when he was about 4 years old or 3 years old, we told him that was him. So he was so proud of that. Everybody he'd come up to, he's, I adopted. Anyway, when he was 21 years old, he decided he did want to meet his biological beginnings, and we'd always told him that would be fine. And the first thing he said after he'd met them that day, he says, "Mom," he said, "I feel all normal now." And I said, oh, and you know, I understood what he meant. He saw himself in his biological father. He was very much like his father. And the things that didn't jive in our family with his personality, it jived there. So he didn't feel that he was different. And he found himself. And I thought that was really important. One of the most downtime in our life, I guess, is losing our son. When Trevor died in 2007 at this accident, leaving 5 little ones behind. And now seeing his family come through that with another father figure in their family and them still being part of our family.
Daryl's birth was almost like kind of slow, on time, persistent. And growing up, he'd figure things out.
He was much more a laid-back type of child, quiet, do his own thing. You never knew quite what he was thinking. Trevor, you always knew what he was thinking. And very definite about what he wanted and what he didn't want. A very cuddly baby. You could always depend on Daryl being sensible and thinking things through. I baked some cookies They wanted the cookies. I said, no, you can have the cookies after dinner, and they were on the table. And Trevor would grizzle at me and whine, I want the cookies, but he wouldn't. And while Trevor was busy trying to convince me to let them have the cookies, and I was in the other room, Daryl was sitting on the table eating the cookies.
Krisha's birth, I didn't have a chance to get into the delivery room. She came in the labor room. And Krisha was always efficient, quick, on the go.
And Krisha was much more of an independent, do it my way type of kid. Even as a baby, you couldn't cuddle her close in. She liked to be around you, and she was very dependent, and yet she wanted to be independent.
Trevor and Krisha had a special bond too, in personality. Also, she was the little sister. When it came dating time, Krisha used to say, well, before I can get a date, I was got to pass the inspection of the brothers. They were very protective of her.
We'd go camping a lot. They loved camping. We would go out to in Saskatchewan, they called it Saskatchewan Landing, and we'd go out there, and they just loved to be out walking around in nature, hiking. They'd like hiking and stuff like that.
BC mountains, and camping in the mountains. Then did a lot of coming back to the family and the farm. Seemed like every long weekend we'd be back at the farm here in Riley. But you know, some of the great times we had just camping in Saskatchewan, Cypress Hills.
Yeah.
Then walking, kids in backpack. We still got the old camper in the hay shed there.
Right. Grandchildren are precious. It's another phase in a person's marriage, in our marriage. It's another phase of our children. You know, you have your children and you bring them up. Now the grandchildren, they're another group of little ones that are yours in a different sense. The values that we have that are precious to us and are precious that we wanted to give to our children, and now we'd like to pass them on to their children, is honesty, kindness, respect, and purpose in life, and to be good citizens, just being good, honest, good, respectful people.
They all have awesome families. They love their kids and want the best for them. Yeah, it's a wonderful heritage to look back on our kids and their families. That's what life is about, is your family.
One time we were in the living room listening to some music, and we just kind of held each other and danced around the living room. That was very romantic and close. As we're riding along in the car, every once in a while he'll just reach over and put his hand on my, just these little things really mean a lot.
Kind of tease her. I say, when I see you, I don't see the age, I see you back. And carry a picture in my wallet, and a lot of times at the gas stations when I pull out my credit card, the attendants say, oh, isn't that a beautiful picture, a girl? And I said, yeah, I married her 50 years ago.
Any marriage there's things you work on and things that you have to realize that's coming into the marriage. And when you come into a marriage, you can't depend on the other person to develop you. You have to come in to develop people that make a marriage together.
And you work at it daily. Never let an argument carry on over it. Settle it before the end of the day. Often, just thinking Vera and our relationship, she grew up here in Western Canada. I grew up Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, South Africa. And I hop on a ship and we team up together in Ontario. I don't believe in coincidence. That was planned. That was a God thing. I couldn't have done better. It was ordained. I have a very strong faith. The assurance I have that's been given to me from Scripture that my salvation has been guaranteed.
And because of our belief it wasn't an end, it's a waiting period for later. Same with Mom and Dad. Yeah. And you know, in our family, our children and our grandchildren look to Clarence for wisdom and stability in advice. They see me more as being off the cuff, but if they really want to know some solid advice and stuff, they'll go to Clarence. We'd like to do more traveling to different countries maybe, or that type of thing. Just continuing being here on our farm, doing things together, doing more things with, things with our grandchildren. And as we can, just keep a very active life.
Just continuing and growing the relationship even more. Being able to adjust as we age and cherish the memories. Those memories, they carry you through the tough times. Each day is a gift. I'm a cancer survivor, and I've learned to be thankful I have an attitude of gratitude. And it's a special gift when I can spend that day with her.